This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now, I am just so excited for today's guest because it's been a long time coming. I will be talking to a TV icon legend, and I am talking about Sid Krofft. Yes, the man, the myth, the legend, the Sid Krofft, one half of the Krofft brothers, along with his brother Marty. They made some of the most subversive, countercultural, bizarre shows in the history of television for kids. And you know what I'm talking about. H.R. Puffin stuff, Land of the Lost, Lidsville, The Boogaloos, um, Electra Woman and Dinah Girl on the Krofft Super Show, the Brady Bunch Variety Hour, Pryor's Place, Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, the list goes on and on. I made the connection with him, I think, last summer, early fall, and we're finally going to do this now on February 23rd, 2013, 2023. And I am just so excited. The man is a legend, and I'm going to squeeze in time to talk about a lot of those shows. Not all of them. I want to condense the interview, talk about his early years, and then go into a bunch of those shows. And I cannot wait. It's going to be fantastic. I am just so lucky. I am just blessed, beyond blessed. So yeah, here is my interview with Sid Krofft. I can't tell you what a tremendous honor this is. I consider you one of the last driving forces in the golden age of television, and I thank you so much for coming on today.
Well, thank you for the huge compliment. Thank you.
My pleasure. So, going back in time, I know that your father was a puppeteer and he trained you at a very early age. What age did you officially start puppetry?
No. We gotta stop right there because
Okay.
that was all manufactured in 1950.
Okay.
And if you want to hear that story, okay, I just closed in a huge Broadway show in New York. It ran for a year,
Right.
next to Radio City Music Hall, and then I was offered all kinds of engagements because of it, because the reviews were so incredible, and it was at that moment definitely the height of my career. And so I opened in a Hilton hotel in Chicago right after that.
Right.
And the publicist that handled all the Hilton hotels, because they all had showrooms, and if you played at the Waldorf Astoria or the Plaza or the Palmer House in Chicago, you were at the very top. And so I opened in a show that ran for 6 months in Chicago, and the publicist said, "Wow, I'm going to make you a star. I'm just a kid." And she said, "We're going to manufacture a story and about my dad, in Greece and the puppet theater and all that stuff, and fifth generation, And so, if somebody is going to tell you that they're going to make you a star and you just a little puppet act, what are you going to say? No, I want you to do that."
Yeah.
So I said, "Yeah, I'm game." And so, and then many years later, there was a huge interview for the front page of the LA Times, a story, and I told the truth. The real story. The manufactured Hollywood blow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how that all happened. No, I came from a really poor family, and we were caught up in one of the biggest hurricanes on the East Coast. It was our first time in America.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was born in Canada,
Right.
in Montreal, and the whole family was here for the summer, and everybody on our long street with all these mansions. We didn't have one. We had a little shack right on the beach for, I don't know, it was probably $25 a month or whatever. And that's 1938.
Right.
And nobody made it but our family on that street. So then we moved to Providence, Rhode Island with nothing, just the clothes on our back. Mm-hmm. And I saw my first, I'm 9 years old, turning 10, and I saw my first puppet show in a vaudeville show at a theater in Providence, Rhode Island. And I knew that was going to be, I loved what I saw. I never saw a marionette before. Mm-hmm. And I said, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life, be a puppet.
Right.
Here. And so the story goes on. It's like a huge snowball. You know, my life has been, it just keeps adding until it's still adding. As a matter of fact, this moment, mm-hmm. we're looking out, I'm in California, and it's snowing. It's snowing. I'm talking about a snowball. And I've never seen that here, you know?
Yeah.
It was 70 degrees a couple of days ago. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Is it true, though, that you did tour with the Ringling Brothers Circus?
Yeah. That was 1945 and 46. And it was in the sideshow as the world's youngest puppeteer. I got $50 a week, which was like my family said we're millionaires. That's $200 a month. And you know, if you're talking about the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus in 1945, the Big Top held 15,000 people. Mm-hmm. I didn't perform in the Big Top. The sideshow, you know.
Right.
And in those days they called it the freak show. I don't know what the hell I was doing there, but I was a huge attraction. I was a huge attraction for them. Mm-hmm. Because I was bringing kids into the sideshow. Sideshow held about 3,000 people.
Right.
And it was huge. You know, the circus had 1,800 performers in the show.
Nice. Do you think that the circuses don't have a lot of magic these days because there are no more? There's like no more circus freaks.
Well, no, the circus wasn't all about that. The circus, when the circus came to town, mm-hmm. in those days, it was almost the only form of huge entertainment. And they only, Ringling Brothers only had one company. And so it was East Coast one year and West Coast the second year. And school would close. The banks would close. It was a national holiday when the circus came to town. Where are you from? Who am I
I'm originally
When I'm talking to you at this moment, where are you?
currently I'm in Redding, California, but I'm born and raised in San Francisco.
Oh, so we're up.
Yeah.
Oh, well, wow. So we're just talking to Californian. Now, is this where you were born?
No, I'm born and raised in San Francisco.
Oh, I love San Francisco. I worked there a lot,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. So, at what point do you and Marty start working together?
well, I was fortunate enough in 1957. I just got back from Europe. I had been in Europe all through the 50s. I'm sorry. Yeah, all through the 50s. And in 1957, I was offered out of, yeah, I'm sure, thousands and thousands of performers, the Judy Garland first national tour to be her opening act, a puppet act. And that just blew my mind. I couldn't believe that she chose me to be on her first national tour. We did not play San Francisco, but we did Los Angeles at the Greek Theater
Right.
for a whole week. There's never been that of a performer that played 6 nights, consecutive nights at the Greek Theater. And then the Coconut Grove. But I think she did perform in San Francisco years after my tour at the Golden Gate Theater. I think so.
Yeah, did she become a mentor to you?
And Marty joined me. Oh my God, yes. I toured with her for a year and a half. Marty joined me on my very last engagement with Judy Garland at the Fontainebleau Hotel in Miami. And because I lost my assistant, and Marty was a car salesman. He was only 19 years old in New York, in Queens, New York. And I thought it would be great to have someone in my family join me. And I didn't grow up with Marty at all. I hardly even knew him because I started touring I started my act when I was 10 years old. Yeah. As a performer.
Yeah, did you and Marty find, like, right away you two had instant chemistry that you didn't know you two had?
No, we never had chemistry from the beginning. Never. And to this day, Marty is a good salesman. I'm the guy that created, all those shows,
right,
and puppet shows and my act, and and I'm the guy definitely behind the curtain.
Yeah. Now, you were close friends with Liberace. You got any good stories about him?
Oh, I mean, we'd be on for 6 days. Yeah, because I toured with him for a year and a half. Liberace, as his opening act. I knew Liberace in 1952 because he was also a Hilton act and very famous, even before you know, he really became worldwide famous. And he was a society act, and he played, you know, all the hotels that I played. We never performed together, but we finally met face to face in New Orleans. He was playing at another hotel. I was at the Roosevelt Hotel performing, and that's when we first met. But I did not tour with him until that was 1952. I didn't tour with him until 1959, and we went to Australia. We toured the world, you know. And again, I was his opening act. He was an incredible, not only performer, but an incredible person. And nothing like that movie that we saw not too long ago.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was not Liberace at all that I knew, you know. Yeah. And,
yeah, that was
he was quite a character, but nobody.
Yeah, that movie was too sensational, I have to say. Is it true that he was responsible for getting you guys on the Dean Martin show?
No, he didn't get me on. He got me off. Is that what you? Yeah, we were fired because of him, because he was a very close friend of mine all through those years.
Yeah,
and I idolized him as a performer. I mean, if you ever saw him perform live, you've never experienced anything like it. And now, what happened when we were on the Dean Martin show, it was my idea. I said, Lee, you have the biggest fan club in the world. I said, why don't you have your fans write a letter? I mean, we were regulars on the Dean Martin show.
Mm-hmm.
And have them write a letter and say there should be more Krofft puppets on the show. Why are they only doing one number? And they got hundreds of thousands of letters, and Dean Martin didn't like that because they were negative with Dean Martin.
Mm-hmm. And
they said, more puppets. So he said, fire those guys. So we lost our job. Oh. Well, it wasn't the first time I was fired.
That is unfortunate. I heard that Dean did not like rehearsal.
No, he never came in to do a run through. We shot that one take, that whole show live, and if he messed up, then that was his image. You know, yeah. Dean Martin was like, you always thought he was drunk.
Yeah.
But that was just, his character. And, we would rehearse with the puppets because he would come in and talk to them. And I don't know how many puppeteers, probably 8.
Right.
Or 10. And, or it could possibly be more. I don't really recall. But we would rehearse all week, and then he'd come in for the dress rehearsal. But he just sort of roughed it. And I'd say, Dean, you got to stand on the left side. And he would, and then when we shoot the show, he would do the opposite,
Yeah.
So we caught on to that, and we were prepared for that.
Yeah. So how do you and Marty come to design costumes for the Banana Splits Hour?
that because we had puppet shows in all the Six Flag parks.
Right.
And we were also the creative head of the parks. And Angus Wynn was the owner of all the Six Flag parks. And he was responsible for building in each park a theater for us that was sponsored by the Coca-Cola Company. Well, he set us up right behind the Burbank Airport, a block-long building there that he wanted us to build all of their rides or anything that the parks needed. And so, like I said earlier, we became the creative heads, and it was called the Show Business Factory. Well, in April, when all the parks would open, I did not want to let my creative people go. So I got permission from Angus Wynn because he was sponsoring that building. We had 200 and some odd people working there. And so I didn't want to close down for the next season. So I asked him if we could open up our doors to Hollywood. And because we had the most creative people on the planet. It was like a Disney operation, but, very small. And so what happened was Hanna-Barbera came in. They had an idea to do the banana splits for us to build a costume. And so, and design them, because we did that in all the puppet shows. We knew how to put people inside of a costume. Right. And that was even before Disney put Mickey Mouse in one. And so that's how the big banana splits happened. And because of the banana splits, we were not even, we had no knowledge of television or movies or anything like that. But the network came to us and said, you guys should come up with your own idea. We'd buy it. This place is crazy. The Show Business Factory. There's so much creativity here. So the idea of HR Puffin stuff came from a puppet show at not at Six Flags, a puppet show that was at the Hemisphere in San Antonio called Kaleidoscope. And Puffin stuff, that character was in that show. And so that's where that whole idea, what got us into television.
Wow. Yeah, I've talked to Terry Winkless and Bob Towers, and they described you guys as geniuses, but those costumes were very hot.
Oh, yeah. Well, all of our costumes were hot. Now they have little air conditioners in there. Yeah. This was before we could work out the technology. You're talking about over 50 years ago, Yeah. So, and I'm still here to talk about it.
Yeah, you guys had issues with standards and practices on HR Puff and stuff. Like they didn't like the title, right?
No, they hated the title. They thought it was too feminine. They thought it meant a powder puff. and I said, well, do you listen to music? And they said, well, why are you asking us that question? I said, Puff the Magic Dragon is the #1 hit right now. That's where it came from. Puff. He was a dragon. Puff the Magic Dragon.
Right.
You know, and so we came up with the name Puffin stuff, but it didn't look big enough for me. Since he was the mayor of Living Island, you know, he was the Royal Highness. And so I took Royal Highness and I spun it around. And that's HR. And it doesn't mean Henro that everybody thinks it does.
Yeah. Now, Sharon Barrett is a friend of the show. She is such a great lady. How did you come to find her?
Well, you know, Sharon Barrett and all the little people, and well, Sharon Barrett is not a little person, but, you know, the shorter the better for us, because those characters, you know, I wanted them to be, little people to be inside of them. And then they would look more like, you know, a puppet against a human being. You know, none of them were as tall as Jack Wilde, you know. And so it was Billy Barty, who I had worked with in vaudeville. And I called Billy Barty. I wanted him to be on Puff and stuff, but he was making a movie. He was in London making a movie. And so he said, "Oh, I'm the president of the little people. And I'll find you as many as you need." I said, "I need about 30. And so I credit Billy Barty for finding. We brought them from Europe, and I have a great story, a San Francisco story about a little person.
Oh, good.
He would just give me their phone numbers, and I called the woman. She was in Poltergeist. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Zelda Rubinstein.
Yeah, Zelda.
Yeah.
And I called her. Right. And I called her, and she said, "Yeah, I heard all about it, but what do you want me to be, a mushroom?" And she said, "I want to be an actress. I don't want to be in a suit, running around as a mushroom in a suit."
Yeah.
So we never got her on board.
I talked to Felix before he passed. He said that he worked with you guys for 6 months at the World's Fair, and when he came back to Hollywood, he had to start over again because nobody remembered him.
Yeah. Oh, I love Felix. He was just, they were all of them were just unbelievable, because we always had a little person in the puppet show, in one of our puppet shows. And because the marionettes were the same size, and we would put strings on the little person, the audience and the critics never knew that we always had a little person mixed with the puppets. And it was just amazing, you know. And Felix, played the New York World's Fair for us, right?
Yeah. Last night I watched the Puff and Stuff movie. That movie really holds up, I have to say. Like, what was the genesis of that?
Yeah. Well, it was actually Marty's idea, or maybe our showrunner. I'm not sure, because we had all these beautiful sets. We were finishing shooting our 17th show. The network wanted to pick up a second season, but they didn't want to pay us any more than what we were getting. $56,000 an episode. So when you look at those shows, it's not today. It would be $6 million or something to do 23 minutes. 56,000.
Mm-hmm.
We lost $1 million of our own money from the puppet shows on the first 17 shows. So it was Marty that went to Universal and said, you know, we've got the sets, we've got the cast. Let's do a movie version of it. And they said they really were not interested. How much is it going to cost? And my brother threw out. He said $1 million, and which was a lot of money in those days. And they said, well, if you can find somebody to finance it, we'll do it. And so Marty went to Kellogg because Kellogg was our sponsor. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, the first commercial or anything that I ever directed like that, I directed one of the commercials for our show for Kellogg. And as I said, they were our sponsor. And I won an award for it. And I never directed in my life a commercial or a television show or anything like that. Yeah. Yes, all the puppet shows I directed. Yeah, and the big Les de Paris I created and directed. And so Kellogg gave us the $1 million, and that's how the movie got made.
You guys did a great job of making Cass Elliot look hideous. Do you have any good stories about working with her?
Oh yeah. Well, Cass Elliot never did a movie before, and Cass was a very close friend of mine, and she lived at the very bottom of my hill where my house is. Uh-huh. But at that time, I was not living here, but I met her through her manager, Alan Carr. And at a big Hollywood party that he had, and we just got the movie greenlit, and I knew there was a character in it in the script called Witch Hazel, which was Witchy Pooh's best friend, and I looked at Cass and I said, at the party, I said, have you ever done a movie before? She said, no. Well, I said, I haven't either. So it's perfect. Would you be interested? Would you be interested in, in playing this character? She said, oh, in a minute. I hope I'm going to have a song in it. I said, yeah. Oh, definitely. And so that's how that all happened. And then when I moved here at my house, 1972, because the Puff and Stuff movie was 1970, I didn't know that she lived at the bottom of my hill. Mm-hmm. And one day I walked down my driveway, and she was standing in her driveway, and I said, Cass, and she said, Sid, what are you doing? Are you stalking me? And I said, no, I live right above you. And then we became the best of friends.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, I'm a huge fan of Land of the Lost. I was 8 years old when the reboot series was on in 1991. And that's how I first discovered it. I got into the original series later on in life. So, what's the genesis of Land of the Lost?
Well, Land of the Lost was our 5th show, and and there was a friend of mine who was working at 20th Century Fox, and Alan Fosco was his name, a really close friend of mine. He lived in New York, and when he used to come out here, he was my house guest, and when he did a presentation, he put it together like a collage, and he would cut all kinds of pictures out of magazines, and his collages were like a piece of art. Right. And he was also like an artist too, and so I had a huge collection of I always forget.
National Geographic.
National Geographic.
Yeah.
Why do I always forget that magazine? And he said, "Do you mind if I look through your magazines?" And I said, "Why would I mind?" You know. And I was standing with him, and he pulled out a dinosaur. Mm-hmm. It was all on dinosaurs, the whole magazine, that edition, and I could, for 2 years, I couldn't come up with the 5th show, and we were looking at the dinosaur book, and I went, "Oh my God, I can't believe it," because the second movie I ever saw was 1 million BC, and that movie left such an impression. It scared the hell out of me to see dinosaurs, you know, moving and eating people, and so I said, "Oh my God, Alan, would you help me? You know, I've got an immediate idea. Swiss Family Robinson. That's what it is. It's a family, you know, and they become not shipwrecked the way Swiss Family." And I came up with the idea of we didn't want the mother involved, and it was just the father taking his 2 kids on a trip for the weekend, and they were going down the rapids for the first time, you know, and so that's how they get caught into that world. So that's how that show happened.
Yeah, was it technically a challenge for the dinosaur puppets and all of that?
It was frightening, yeah. When we put the first show together, because we shot the live action in front of a blue screen, and then the dinosaurs were stop motion, antiquated. Couldn't afford, you know, to be, again, we got 50 some odd thousand an episode. And when we finished the first show, which we shot on the only soundstage at the Jim Henson studio, which was the Charlie Chaplin studios. We shot it on their stage, the first show. And that stage really wasn't big enough, so after the first show was done, we moved to a bigger stage. Mm-hmm. But we couldn't put the stop motion together with the tape, and we honestly didn't think that the whole series was going to happen. And all the technicians in Hollywood, even from Disney, helped us to figure it out. And so that's how Land of the Lost came about.
Mm-hmm. Whose idea was it for Wes to sing a song at the end of every show?
Well, I discovered him right here at my house. We just got the order for Puffin Stuff.
For Land of the Lost.
I'm sorry, for Land of the Lost.
Yeah.
And somebody brought him to my house to go swimming on a Sunday. And I never met him before. Or he was on a soap. I don't watch soap, so I wasn't even, aware of his talent or anything. And we were talking most of the day, and near the end of the day, I said, "You want to know something? I'm going to give you a phone number, and I want you to call our office the first thing tomorrow morning, because it was the only show that we hired a casting, because all the other shows, they were all friends of mine. I found Jack Wilde through Lionel Bart. I found Richie Poo, Billy Hayes, through an actor friend of mine. Martha Ray was a very close friend of mine since 1950. And, and go down the line. They were Charles Nelson Riley was a friend. It was hard talking these people into doing a little kiddie show. They said, "Sid, I love you, but you're going to ruin my career. If I do a kid show, that means it's the end of my career."
Yeah.
And so that's how all those people came about. And so that's going back to Wesley. He went in and they immediately, they didn't even look at anybody else. You hired him. And I said, whoever, you match him up with, it's got to match up with him, because he's the son. And if you're going to have a young daughter and his dad, they have to look like they're a family. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And him singing, okay, that's the question.
Yeah.
He told me that he's a singer. And I said, God, that would be incredible for him to sing the theme song. And he also sang on a couple of episodes.
Mm-hmm. What made you and Marty transition into doing variety shows?
We didn't transition into it. What happened was, one day, we were the kings of children's shows. We were on all three networks.
Right.
Fred Silverman was the president of ABC at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And he called me and said, I just saw these two kids. One's already a teeny boppy star. The other one, just recorded a single and it went through the roof. Brother and sister. And I just saw them on an afternoon talk show. And if I send over the tape to you, I want your opinion. And he did. And I immediately called him back and I said, Fred, you know who they are? I said, Fred, you saw me in the Judy Garland show. I worked in vaudeville with Mickey Rooney. Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney did a whole series of movies, and they were considered the boy and girl next door. I said, Fred, Donnie, and Marie are the boy and girl next door. He said, bingo, I want to do a variety show. He said, can you go to Provo in a couple of days and tell them what the show is? I said, you're out of your mind. I mean, a couple of days? I've never done a variety show, but I was in vaudeville, and I did all my 8 years of puppet shows. I know how to put on a show, you know, and we flew, Marty and myself, to Provo, and I pitched the whole show with the ice skaters. I was in an ice show in New York. You know, I didn't want dancers. I wanted something different. And all the production numbers, that was my, you know, because I knew all the Busby Berkeley stuff. I was in vaudeville, you know. I knew how to put on a big vaudeville show. And so that's how that began. And then, of course, we're getting back to the snowball, you know. Then we were offered other variety shows. And I loved it. I loved doing it because that's where I come from, live theater.
Right. Yeah, another friend of the show is Louise Duart, very talented lady. How did you discover her?
Louise Duart, she just came to audition for us, you know, and she never knew she could do impersonations of other
celebrities,
stars. And she is the biggest talent. Yeah, she's the biggest talent on the planet. I mean, and the nicest lady. I mean, I had her, you know, I want everybody out there that's listening to me today to know that I'm on Instagram every Sunday at 3 o'clock. I go live for an hour. You're going to hear the craziest stories, you know, that you've never heard before. Because if you're a fan of mine, yeah, you know, Puff and Stuff and the other 25 series that we did, but you don't know, you know, the Judy Garland stories and the Liberace stories and the, you know, and how I started and all that stuff. So, but the reason I bring it up is because I had Louise Duart and her husband, you know, who was a producer,
right,
on my show. It was great. It was a great hour. Yeah.
Yeah. What was Captain Cool and the Kongs your idea?
No, it was the Osmond brothers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they wrote the songs and everything. They came up with even the name. Yeah. Now, at that point, you know, a bunch of the shows after Land of the Lost were not. The only other two ideas I had in that big package is Dr. Shrinker and Horror Hotel, you know, and all the other shows came from Ruby and Spears. You know, Electro Woman and Diner Girl. Yeah. That was an idea they had to do an animated, you know, that they couldn't sell. And so I turned it into live action, but, you know, I cannot take credit for all those other shows.
Yeah, Electro Woman and Dinah Girl was an awesome show. I can't believe it hasn't become like a comic book phenomenon like all the DC and Marvel movies that are out today.
It would make make a great movie, you know, and it's an incredible idea, and just having two women, you know, like that, a younger one and
older,
and a girl and a woman, as for Saturday morning was a brilliant idea because and they were women superheroes. There was nothing like that. So it was something for the girls, because every one of my shows, girls watched it, but there was always a boy. Yeah. The only girl that we had was in Land of the Lost. It was always a boy because I didn't, you know, it's all swiped from The Wizard of Oz, which was the first movie that I ever saw in 1939, an opening day. And when the idea of Puffin stuff, I thought, well, that was a girl, so let's have a boy. And it worked, an English boy. Oh my God, they went crazy.
Yeah.
The network didn't like that. They said, we can't understand a word he's saying. He's Cockney. But the kids absolutely fell in love with him. And then came the Bugaloos, English, you know, and then came Lidsville, and, you know, a boy again. And then came Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, two boys, two brothers. And then came, you know, Land of the Lost. And of course, we had to have a young girl for the girls. The girls are sort of forgotten. You know, why is it always always boys? And so that's why Electra Woman and Diner Girl was only a 15-minute show. Mm-hmm. You know, it wasn't a half hour. Yeah, and I love that because back in the 50s, you know, there were variety shows, Perry Como and Dinah Shore. They were 15-minute shows. It's perfect. I hate, you know, when you see today an hour show, it's like pulling an elastic. The story just goes, you know, I love to get the message over as quickly as possible, because people, well, today they don't have the time that they had back then. Right. You know, today there's just too much television, too many movies to pick from, you know, and so it confuses me. I don't know what it does to everybody else.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's oversaturated with new content, you know, and a lot of it's not even good. That's why, you know, I do a podcast like this to keep the old stuff alive, you know.
Well, thank you. That's incredible. You know, I'll tell you one thing, and maybe in almost closing, because we've been on for a while. We've been on for an hour. Oh God, what was the thought? I had a big thought, and
about the oversaturation of new content.
Drifted away. I'm looking out at the snow. Yeah. Oh, I'll tell you what blows me away big time. Don't forget, all of our shows were done over 50 years ago. 55-0. And just wherever I go, and just the other night I went to see Puppet Up at the Brian Henson Studios, that it is really the Jim Henson Studios, and they had, you know, I don't know, maybe 300 people. They had a show on the sound stage where we shot Land of the Lost, and wow, it was amazing. When people knew I was there, and I mean a ton of people, they freak out.
Oh,
and
sure.
I freak out because I'm talking about 50 years ago, you know, and people still remember, and you do too. They remember the characters.
Mhm.
They remember the songs. They remember the people that played the parts. I mean, come on. How many, 50 years ago, how many shows can you mention and talk about that has lasted in people's minds, you know, and really take the time on Sunday, everybody out there, to listen to my show, because I always have a really interesting guest on, you know, and we've got Anderson Cooper coming, and
Nice.
hopefully we're going to get a date from, you know, and those Katie Kirk, they watch my show.
Right.
And so it's just, I've had a lot of big stars on, you know, and I'll have more. I've been on for 3 years. It's something that Kelly, my creative assistant, that's been with me a zillion years, you know, she talked me into doing it because I said, I hate it. I hate interviews. I hate, and I try to get out of interviews. I've always done that, you know, but now I'm loving it.
You can't shut them up.
Yeah, that's Kelly. She just said, you can't shut them up. That's my Kelly. Everybody should have a Kelly. Okay.
real quick, Sid, I'm curious, is there going to be another Krofft Con?
Wouldn't that be great? I've got to tell you something. I'm going, anybody out there that lives in Texas, you got to come and see me. Texas is the most important place on the whole map for me, because the biggest part of my huge career all happened in Texas, in Dallas. And, you know, and that's what got me into television, got me into movies. That's what, you know, got me into doing these huge puppet shows that I did for 8 years. And so, and that's where I played with Judy Garland for a whole week. And I'm going to be there next Saturday and Sunday.
Nice.
And it's, Kelly, what is the...
It's the Retro Expo.
Yeah, the Retro Expo.
Nice.
And in Dallas, I can't wait, you know, to see everybody there and talk to you. I take the time, so don't be embarrassed.
But I will answer your question regarding KrofftCon, just because I can do it very quickly. KrofftCon was completely fan created, and they invited Sid and Marty to join. So a KrofftCon would be basically another fan created show, and inviting the boys.
I was going to go last year. Unfortunately, I couldn't.
Oh, you didn't go?
No.
It was fabulous. It really was.
Yeah, I wanted to see all my podcast guests that you've worked with and stuff, but unfortunately, I couldn't. But hopefully in the future.
Well, I'm game for it. Yeah, I love doing it.
Awesome. Sid, once again, this has been a tremendous honor. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. And all your fans out there, that's great that they're going to be hearing our stories. I really thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, sir. And thank you, Kelly, for setting this up. You both have a wonderful day.
To be continued.
Yeah. Stay out of the snow and be warm, okay?
Hey, thank you. Thank
you. Bye, guys. Well, there you have it. Sid Krofft. Ain't he a cool dude? He is a legend amongst legends, and these damn internet Zoom audio connections. But hey, at least we got it done, and it was fantastic. So go see Sid at that convention and check out his live Instagrams every Sunday at 3 o'clock. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.